I haven't done one of those indie darlings in a while, so here's one from 2012, or at least as indie as something published by the folks at Sony can get. However, this is among the more moving ones. It has taken many gamers to their core, and some have even gone as far as to say it to be a spiritual or religious experience. For me, concepts in any kind of culture is a borderline religious experience in on itself, but admittedly my first playthrough about a year and a half ago was certainly powerful. Time for me then to revisit Journey and showcase what makes it so special to those who have gazed upon it. It is one of those cases where the credits mention the members of its development company, that game company, but not their specific roles, though my research signal shows Genova Chen as the creative director, who also did the same for the dev team's previous titles Flow and Flower, and to the later out in Sky Children of the Light. The development took a year or two longer than intended and temporarily drove that game company to bankruptcy, but the grind was worth it as it became the fastest selling game in PlayStation Network and garnered a load of awards. The first praise aspect can be felt from the mood it sets. Just a traveler in red robes on a desert. Both of their shapes and colors are sleek, giving the game simple yet elegant visual style. Making a brief walk to the only visible landmarks leads the lone wanderer to see one impressive title poster and their new destination. I mean, where else would you go? Back where you came from? Yeah, I have a feeling nothing good can come out of that. Before the end credits, that title screen is the only form of text we are going to get because the story is told without dialogue. Usually this style doesn't work for me because it limits how complex a story is allowed to get, but in this case the trance-inducing atmosphere is so strong it doesn't matter, and its pacing is such brilliance. Well, admittedly, this lack of text does cause a problem, but I'll get to that later. The plot, while being told through optional murals and these mandatory visions where a white-robed guide person shows more detailed imagery, is quite easy to put together what it's all about. Let's just say it's universal and timeless, that's easy to resonate with no matter what corner of the world you come from, but yeah, it's very familiar. There is more to the game than walking through the desert, as the traveler can also fly, at least as long as the rune energy in their scarf allows, and make these musical signals that are used to control these red cloth creatures that can open mechanisms and boost flight power. If this was all the game had to offer, it would still be a pretty neat little mood piece, but what makes it truly stick to the memory for many years to come is a companion. They suddenly appear in the second level. Sometimes you see them first, sometimes they do you. But the first time seeing this another traveler brought the experience to almost spiritual level once I realized there's an actual human behind the character, making this the first multiplayer game I've ever played. Well, I did try RuneScape in the mid-2000s but got bored soon after tutorial, so it doesn't count. I knew of Journey's multiplayer aspect before buying the game, but I thought it was a specific mode you have to select, because I remember reading from somewhere that your companion leaving in the midst of your travels would screw you over. In the release game, it doesn't prevent you from finishing the game, but it does make some optional collectibles unobtainable. As I've alluded to, you can have multiple companions in the same playthrough. In my first I had 2, but for this playthrough I was determined to have one true companion through the whole 8 levels. And I think they felt the same. The before mentioned musical signals are also your only way of communicating with fellow travelers, and they did come in use in guiding them to secrets they presumably weren't aware of, and coordinating safe routes when these eerie war machines entered the picture. Or you can pretend to have conversation and imagine the player characters to have personalities. In this case, me being laconic and stoic, while my companion is like, "Dude, I'm surfing on the sand dunes, this is the best thing ever, OMG!" As a side note, while this level is fun to play, it's the only one that doesn't visually please me due to its oversaturation. And speaking of visuals, the player characters looking the same did cause problems in a later level where I failed to maneuvers because I look at the wrong character, but other than that, this novel yet powerful concept demands my whole attention, which I'm glad to give and go through the whole thing in one sitting. A task that isn't hard to achieve considering the game can be completed in less than 2 hours. While the short length has gotten criticism, the critics have often said in the same sentence that it fits for the game, and I agree. If this was even an hour longer, keeping one companion would have been less likely. But we indeed managed to stick together through the whole journey. So thanks Grep, Alex, Steve, you're the true MVP. That being said, it is easy to make your journey less satisfying, because plot twist, I've shown so far material from my third playthrough, because in the second playthrough, because of lack of any clear environmental indications, I accidentally skipped half the game. I went to this chamber at the end of the first level and suddenly got teleported. I was at first confused at was this an optional route and got even more confused when I realized this was the 6th level. At the next playthrough I figured out that the first level is also a hub world for those who have already finished the game, but it could have been shown clearer. This vague image drowns in the environment. Yet during this 40-minute travel I managed to have 3 different companions. And the last one ditched me after I drove from a bridge, so I had to go to the final destination all by myself. I'm not going to say any names, but that was hella rude. But when everything does click into their places, journey is primal proof that simple is beautiful. Don't look at the game's short length as a detriment. It has nothing unnecessary and it managed to keep its meditative atmosphere all the way through, despite some minor hiccups. Smooth, stylized graphics, Austin Wintour is rightfully Grammy-nominated serene soundtrack, and its revolutionary gameplay loop makes it one of the most artistically significant works in video game hemisphere. There's also huge amounts of replay value as every companion makes each playthrough unique, so going through the journey again and again is rewarding. If you feel you still want more, the team's next outing Sky, Children of the Light from 2019 apparently has similar mechanics, but I'm not familiar enough with it to know how it truly differs from Journey. There's also another so-called spiritual successor of the 2020's Pathless, which is from some of That Game Company alumni, but apparently their similarities end on the visual style because the Pathless is in faster tempo and has combat. Because that's what was missing from Journey, getting to beat corrupted gods into submission.